to LOA Today. I'm Walt Jason.
I've been doing this podcast since September of 2012, and boy, are my lips tired.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And I'm also happy because I have a guest joining me today who is a certified master life coach. We're not just talking any life coach here. We're talking certified master. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds cool. I'll just put it at that. We'll let Michael tell us about it. But his name is Michael Mammina, and like I said, he is a certified master life coach. He's got some interesting things that he does too, and we're going to get to a few of them later on, including something called a reinvention retreat. Ooh, sounds good. But first of all, Michael, welcome to the program. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me here. I am very excited to have a conversation with you.
So, cool. Yeah, we're excited too. This is going to be good. And by the way, one of my co-hosts who does the Friday show with me, his name is Neil Positivity. He makes T-shirts and wears them around, and they all say in big letters, "Thoughts become things." There you have that written on the wall behind you. So yeah, I think we have the right guy in the right place. This is a good thing.
Great.
So, give us your bio. How'd you end up being the guy who's the certified master life coach?
Well, it's a very interesting story. It could take more than an hour, but we won't do that. I'll give you the condensed version.
Oh, that helps.
For me, I went I grew up in New York, and I went the standard route of career and was very successful in business. For many, many years, over 30 years, I was a creative director for very well-known companies that you would, household names, so to speak, and had a great career and was very happy with my life. Externally, everything looked perfect, but internally, things were not okay. Yeah. So I know that that's a pretty common story for most people, but I decided that I could no longer not live in the integrity and the truth of what I needed to do for myself to live my life more authentically, to make sure that my inside matched, or my outside, I should say, matched my inside. So what, after a 30-year career, very successful, I was very fortunate to attend a workshop that was given by the late Debbie Ford called the Shadow Process. And the Shadow Process was a weekend deep dive into your stuff, as she called it, where you couldn't really hide from the truth of what was sort of bothering you and holding you back in your life.
Isn't that annoying? I mean, you can't even hide from it anymore.
Could not. I mean, people were like punching the wall. It was crazy. It was crazy. But for me, it was absolutely the pinnacle moment where I could not hold back any longer from really facing my truth. So, and it wasn't even so much that, the truth wasn't for me like, oh, I'm a gay man, I need to come out of the closet. It wasn't even that. That had already happened. The truth for me was that I really didn't love myself. And I really didn't even understand what that meant or understand that I needed to change that. But that weekend shifted it for me. And then I was so fortunate that one of her coaches came up to me and said, "Hey, I would love to take you through the program and coach you through this breakthrough shadow."
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, sure. Like, you're going to give me free coaching. I was all about that. I knew the value of what he was offering me. Yeah. And I was so fortunate to work with him and learn so much about going inside. And, as Neil Donald Walsh also says, the author, if you don't go inside, you go without. And when I went inside, that's when I really discovered what I needed to excavate and really work on. So from there, he offered me a couple of other programs, and I went to another Shadow Process for another butt-kicking weekend. And from there, I said, you know what? This work they should give away at the grocery store. So I want to shift my life and be in service. So, how did you become a master certified life coach? I went to school for 2 years and studied. And part of that was not only learning coaching skills and how to become a coach, but it was how to clean up more of my own stuff. And, I believe that if you don't come as clean as you can as a coach, then your clients are never going to be able to really navigate, because you're going to be working through your own stuff. So, it took time. And I got my first certification, then I got another certification, and then I found another academy called 11 Life Coach Academy. And from there, I went on and got 5 more certifications. And you might be thinking, well, why do you need all these certifications? They're all specified in a particular area, like boundaries or worthy or new relationships, and your life will appear. So I have the tools now to take clients, and I do, through whatever they're sort of faced with in their life. And that's what got me to this point right now, where I decided to leave the big corporate gig and really head out on my own and be of service to people. And that's where I am today, 2 years later, out there, doing my thing and creating lots of great opportunities for people to reinvent themselves and to go inside and take that journey, with me supporting them and holding the space for them to really find what they need to create the life that they truly desire.
Just as those people who you met at that first shadow conference held some space for you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And a few interesting things kind of pop out at me in your story. First, when you went to that first gathering, that first shadow conference, I mean, it's pretty clear that's when your tipping point happened. But what was that tipping point? I mean, obviously you were dealing with the stuff, all that stuff we don't want to deal with, but you were dealing with it to some degree and with some level of success. And these people came in and said, look, we can take you to the next level. But somewhere in there was like what they often call an aha moment, right?
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden the lights come on, you say, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. That was bigger than I thought it was going to be. Do you remember what that was?
I remember what the thing was that really was the thing that I realized was holding me back. And that was shame. Shame was holding me back. And from that shame, I was unable to really love myself and to understand what that meant, as I mentioned before. But also the shame held me back from really living the life that I know I truly deserve. Because when I was, and I speak for myself, when I was sort of swimming in all that shame, I didn't even realize that there was any other way of being. It becomes an unconscious driver of your life, shame. Or trauma, or these beliefs about yourself. They become these like operating systems and drivers for your life that you don't even realize are there. So for me, the shame was so deep that I'm not going to lie, I spent a lot of that first weekend just sobbing for the shame that I had felt within myself. Part of it was being a gay man and not living up to, my family expectations or whatever it was. But part of it was also hiding myself, hiding the truth of who I was. Again, not so much of hiding myself as a gay person, but it was more about just hiding who I was, because I was so scared of people seeing who I truly was. Like I was kind and I was generous and, but underneath it, there was all of this shame that was holding me down. So I would say, for me, the biggest aha was like, wow, there's so much shame here that, needs to be worked through. And as Debbie Ford used to say so often, she was a master with these kind of things. You could put as much whipped cream or ice cream on top of poop, but until you really get in there, it's still underneath. So you gotta, once that whipped cream is gone. So it was time to dig deep and to clean it all out, but it was shame.
That makes a lot of sense to me on a number of levels, not the least of which is I really don't like to put ice cream or whipped cream on poop at all under any circumstances. So yeah,
right.
I don't think anybody really does when it comes down to it. But yeah, it makes total sense to me. A couple other things that came to my mind there as you were telling your story, the whole idea of self-love. You said basically you had realized you'd been hiding who your true self was. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, so to speak, and ask you, so who is your true self? Have you figured that out? Can you define that for us?
Yeah, I mean, my true self truly is someone who feels confident in my own shoes, so to speak, who is truly living life authentically as me. And those might sound a little bit like cliched words, but they're really not when you truly step into that truth and that, you can trust who you are. And what I've also learned for me is that it's very important for me, not from a codependent people pleasing perspective,
Mhm.
but truly from a place of groundedness to be of service to people.
Mm.
People say, well, what's your purpose? Or, why are you here? Like, I honestly believe that, part of it used to be people pleasing for sure. Like, please accept me, please accept me. Now it's really, how can I be of service to you? How can I support you in what you need in your life?
Which
So
actually sounds like a fairly simple transition to me.
yeah, but it took time to get there, actually.
Mm.
You know, it's
Mm.
it's it's a little bit of semantics of words.
Yeah.
First I was wanting to get something. When you're a people pleaser, you need to
Mm.
get something.
Mhm.
You need to get validated. You need to feel
Mhm.
worthy. You need to
Mhm.
get X, Y, or Z.
Mm.
When you are giving, when you are being of service, you are truly in a place of giving.
Yeah, that is the distinction. Yeah.
And that's a big shift.
Mhm. Yep. They both involved helping other people, but just with different, motivations, really.
Motives. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. One, I believe, is much more healthy than the other.
I hear you on that. I think it's pretty much true of everybody who appears on the show. In fact, I say so usually at the end of each episode, how everybody who comes onto the show is a giver. And it's true. They are. You are. We all are.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram, but I am a 2. I am a helper. So that's
I'm not familiar. Enlighten me. Tell
okay.
me.
Yeah. So the Enneagram is a wonderful I am not going to do it justice, but it's ancient actually
Oh, okay.
system of looking at personality traits and behaviors and understanding what you possess and what are sort of your highest traits and characteristics, and using those as a sort of a comprehension for why you do what you do.
Okay.
And so that you can go online to the Enneagram Institute. You could take a free exam and find out what your number is, so to speak. It's 1 through 9, and within each one of them there are characteristics. And once you sort of start seeing it and you see who you are, like for me, I'm the helper. You also then could start looking at other people and perhaps saying, oh, I wonder if they're a 9, which is a rescuer, or, there's all these different ways of people being and the way their traits show up in the world. And there's a lot of philosophy within the Enneagram community that if everybody understood what their numbers were and what their strengths were and how to sort of be conscious of the way they walk through life, people would be much more people would be much more harmonious, let's put it that way, because you can acknowledge, oh yeah, there's the 9 just being the need to rescue people, or there's the helper just needing to come in and help. It sort of gives a little bit of a label, but not a label in a bad way. But it gives versus just being ethereal, like, well, why does this person do that? Versus going, oh yeah, the 7 needs to work this way, or the 1 is the one who comes in and wants to make sure everything's in order, or those kinds of things. So I'm going a little bit down a road on that, but the Enneagram is really cool, and check it out. But knowing that I'm a helper makes perfect sense. But also then helps me understand why I also struggled for a lot of years in business, because I wasn't the one that was the best negotiator, because I was the one that wanted to help,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
it starts to help you understand your characteristics and your behaviors.
It sounds also like the Enneagram is a way of learning how to accept and appreciate others for where they are without trying to change them in some way.
100%. That's absolutely correct. And,
Mhm.
there's there's so much writing on the Enneagram, and again the idea that if we were all conscious of the gifts that we all bring, we can support each other through some of the things that feel really challenging.
Mm-hmm. I have to admit, I've always just preferred to just accept for what they are and find out what that is. But if the Enneagram works for you to do that, then hey, go for it. I love it. Go for it every single time.
Yeah. It's just another tool,
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always good to have tools. We don't have to use them all. That's one
Correct.
thing that people often feel like, oh, I have to use all the tools. You don't have to use all the tools, but it's good to know what they are.
Exactly. Yeah.
You
And to
can't,
keep sort of collecting them. I mean, you don't
yeah.
want to have your own, Home Depot, but
But
but having a bunch of tools is a good thing.
yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
you may not be using a pair of pliers every day, but if you know what they are and how to use them, that's good because someday you may actually need a pair of pliers.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
being able to stop and notice and
Mhm.
say, hey, what was that thing that I learned? Oh yeah, that's
Mhm.
going to be helpful here.
Mhm.
Taking a pause, is one of the big tools that I often suggest to clients, like before you respond, like take a pause, because then you're going to be coming not from a reactive place, but a place of truth.
Mhm. That's a good policy, a good strategy. I like that. So I know you were mentioning earlier, and we also discussed before we got started today, that self-love is a big deal for you. So let's
Yes.
talk about that for a bit. First of all, what does that mean to you? I mean, let's just kind of like lay a foundation down. When you talk about self-love, what are you talking about?
I am talking about fully accepting myself for the truth of who I am, exactly as I am.
Mhm. Okay.
And I'm also talking about um, trusting who I am, feeling comfortable who I am with whom I am, and also putting myself first in my life, which does not mean ignoring the needs or not wanting to participate in life with others, but it's putting myself in a position where I am in my healthiest place.
Almost giving yourself permission to be number one.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe that when we can come from that place of self-love, then we have it to give. Then
Mm.
we have the love to give. If we don't, then what do we have to give?
Mm.
I can't give it to you because I don't have it.
Yeah.
So how can I give it to you?
We kind of skip that very often, not just with this, but with a lot of things. I'm going to give something that I don't have. Well, good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And again, that sounds like a very simple thing, but when, at the end of the day, it's really not.
Mm.
And you can think about that with a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I believe love is really the essence. It's the place that is the truth of who we are in this core. And until we can really feel grounded within it, I can't give you what I don't have. So when I can get in there and really clean out as much of that poop as we can, then I can come from a much more authentic, healthy place. Not every day is perfect, Walt. I'll tell you that right now. But
Really? Oh no!
no,
Wait, but
God.
you just ruined the ending. Come on.
Yeah, that was the
No,
big
I'm
grand
kidding.
ending. Yeah, no, I know that. Not every day is perfect, but that's the difference too. When you can be in a place of self-love, you can catch yourself a lot quicker and just go,
That's true.
oh yeah, there I am doing that behavior again. Like, let me pull this back. Let me recenter. What do I need to do to get myself not only, to not go down the rabbit hole, but to see the hole and go, nope, I'm not going down that hole.
Mm.
Where I used to be able to spend a lot of time down in that rabbit hole, beating myself up and making myself wrong and
Oh, of
shaming
course.
myself and, those things that are very common.
Mhm.
So for me, part of the self-love and the self-confidence and the self-trust, I think the three go hand in hand,
Yes.
give you that opportunity to say, oop, there's the hole. I'm not going in.
Mm.
Like, oh, this happened. I'm going to think about it or react to it differently than perhaps I would have before, so that I don't wind up going down that hole again.
Very good. Yeah. And for me, self-love is one half of a complementary pair, the other half being social connection or human connection. To me,
Sure.
the two are the one they go together. If you don't really have both of them going on, you really haven't done the whole job yet.
Correct. And I would also say partnered with self-love is self-care.
Yes. Hmm. Yeah. Well, clearly, if you're if you're claiming self-love and you're not giving yourself care, then how much self-love are you giving to yourself?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I
I mean,
mean,
it becomes lip service.
it really does. Yeah. Pretty
Right.
quickly. And because it plays out pretty quickly too. That's the really scary part.
Yeah, but so much of that then gets tied into worthiness for people.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, I'm not worthy of that. Like, why would I, like, don't be too big for your britches. Who do you think you are? Like those kinds of messages that we received, why would I give myself self-care? Why would I love myself? That's not good.
And of course, the truth is, we're all still continuing to discover these things about ourselves. I mean, as much work as we might do and learn to love ourselves and all that kind of thing. Every single day, we find something new. Oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. Oh, I didn't realize I had that kind of tendency going on. Oh, I didn't realize I was playing that tape. It's amazing how often they just keep popping up and popping up. That's like part of the life experience, really.
Absolutely. And I believe it'll always continue. And I'm grateful that it will, because then it continues to give me lessons. A lot of people say, oh, I'm peeling back the layer of the onion, and my thing is I have sort of changed that metaphor a little bit. And I'm sort of doing the, peeling back the petals of the rose.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, just to sort of make it a little sweeter, a little prettier maybe. And because I don't think that those lessons stink necessarily. When you think of the onion, I think each of those lessons are so important that, every time we have that new opportunity to look at something differently, or to look at the way we approach or we challenge or are challenged, it's truly an opportunity for growth. And I know for me, I want to keep on growing so that I can continue to have more fulfillment and opportunity to see the world differently.
Hey, speaking of seeing the world differently, you're reminding me when you referred to the stink of the onion, I thought to myself, well, that's not the way I think about it. I love the taste of onion.
I love the taste.
Onion is delicious. And then I realized, oh, you're talking about smell. I'm talking about taste. No wonder. Okay, yeah.
Now,
I get it.
frying them up and putting it on a burger, that's yummy.
Oh, yeah. I like that. Well, actually, I like it in most of the food that I eat. It's a great flavor. It's a wonderful flavor to include with other flavors. So, yeah. But once again, showing and demonstrating how important not only the context is, but also perspective. How are you thinking about it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's one of the biggest things that I've learned doing this show, how much I have come to appreciate the value of perspective. Because you interview enough people like yourself, eventually you're going to get so many different perspectives, and I've interviewed hundreds of people. You're going to get to the point where all those perspectives are affecting you in ways you don't even know about. And one of the things I like to point out a lot is the perspectives. This kind of pisses me off too, but one of the perspectives I learn from the most are from the people I disagree with the most.
Is that because it forces you to sort of see it in another way, to sort of 180 on it, or what's the?
Kind of, and not so much that it forces me to, it challenges me to.
Okay.
Like, okay, are you willing to look at this thing this person is saying that you really don't like on the surface? Because the first tendency is to say, oh, I'm just ruling it out. But when you do interviews like this, well, if you just rule it out, you can turn it into a nice controversial show, and that always, gets interest. But from my perspective of what I'm trying to get out of doing the show for myself, because that's, talk about doing things for number one. I do this show primarily for me, and I just happen to have these listeners, and I love the fact that the listeners are along for the ride. But really, number one, it's for me. What am I going to get out of it? And I'm not going to get a whole lot of it out of it if I am just dismissing it because I don't like it on the surface. So from my perspective, I need to go deeper, and it's a choice that I'm making.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, when I choose to make that choice, that's, like I say, that's when I find I learn the most, which pisses me off to no end. But nevertheless,
well, I don't know if you saw something that's going all over social media this week, and I was actually at a conference this past weekend, and one of the speakers brought it up. They said, like, there's what is it, B, C, and D. So B is birth, and D is death, and C is choice, which is everything in between.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it's all about choice and the choices that you make. And, how, one of my mentors actually says, your life is like a crystal ball. I wrote this in my weekly email this week. You can predict your future based on the choices that you're making today.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're, you can look at that crystal ball and go, okay, so my life's going to look exactly like this unless I make a different choice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, going back to the original theme of the show, that's what law of attraction is all about. What you're focusing on now, you're going to get more of later on.
Right.
So be careful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because like you were saying earlier, we're good at doing all kinds of things like beating ourselves up and looking at negatively at situations and so forth. And by gosh, every single time we do that, very soon down the road, we get more opportunities for it. It's just amazing how fast.
Yeah, and I also believe, again, with the whole consciousness of the law of attraction, which is, the thoughts become things, Mike Dooley, that whole thing. I'm one of his certified trainers also.
Oh, are you really? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I am.
Yeah. I'm an infinite possibilities trainer through him as well.
Okay.
I believe we are like magnets. So we magnetize to us not only the lessons, not only the positive or some of the challenges, so that we have the opportunity to work through things.
Well, that's the hardest part, I think, of law of attraction theory, is accepting that I attracted that stuff I didn't want.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's that whole thing. I was just having this conversation. I did a group last night. And we were talking about, is this happening to me or is this happening for me? And could we accept that this is happening for me, even when it looks like a very difficult situation? And there are many examples of people who, never sort of can see it from that perspective, but those that can also find an inner peace. If you can say, yeah, this is really happening for me. This is changing my life. Mm-hmm. This is allowing me to find another tool that can offer me a different perspective or a new way of seeing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think for me, the biggest thing that made the biggest impact for me when I was still learning this stuff, it's actually the reason why I started the podcast. I wanted to understand it. I was far from being an expert on LOA when I started LOA today. And I was in a really bad place, and that's why I needed to know. But as I have learned it over time, as I've applied it over time, I've come to realize the best thing that I can do is to appreciate the fact that what I don't like comes to me when I focus on what I don't like, and that I'm the one who's doing that.
Right.
Because that requires a degree of ownership that most people aren't willing to face up to be perfectly honest. I've had people accuse me of being an extremist for expressing that viewpoint. But I found that not only is it true, it's empowering. It's incredibly empowering because, I'm attracting this crap that I don't really want. But if I notice that I'm doing that often enough, if I become aware of that often enough, that actually did more for me to reinforce that the law of attraction is real than all the positive stuff coming into my life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, all the stuff that's coming to you, again, is for you, even the more challenging stuff, or each time that you sort of try something and it doesn't work, it's there to give you a lesson. It's that whole thing of, you didn't really make a mistake, you made a mistake. So you have the opportunity to sort of, try it again. And if it doesn't work that time, it's okay, let's take it again. And all of those things that we attract to ourselves, I truly believe are for the evolution of our soul and to bring us to a higher level of consciousness and awareness.
There's also a racial, and by racial I mean human race. There is a racial piece of this in that as information. Now, this may or may not go with some people's idea of law of attraction theory. We'll just put law of attraction theory aside for the moment, just to touch on this. But there is a belief system that I buy into that says that there is an accumulation of knowledge on a racial basis. In other words, the human race accumulating knowledge that the rest of the human race can tap into. And indeed, scientists have been able to identify the same kind of phenomena with other species as well. What I'm curious to know from your perspective is, you were describing, I think quite accurately, that we're here for personal expansion and for how that affects the real us, the inner being us. But I'm also wondering, to what degree do you think what you're doing is contributing to the human race knowledge?
Let me see if I fully grasp all that. I honestly believe also that if I change the way I am, I'm creating space for you to change the way you are.
Okay.
So if I can see things differently and I can act a certain way, then I'm giving permission to other people to consider it, to try it on for themselves.
Okay.
So the more I can be in a place for myself of groundedness, consciousness, of service, you become an example of that. And those that are also on a precipice or looking for consciousness shift will come along for the ride.
Yeah.
And that then, becomes that ripple effect.
Right.
And then before you know it, you're sort of changing the consciousness.
There's also another piece to that too that I've been becoming more and more attuned to, and that is, I mean, we certainly understand vibrationally, if you're putting out a certain vibration and other people are relatively in the same range, they're going to be able to pick it up too. But it also happens to be true that if you're putting out something that is a higher vibrational frequency than other people are ready for, it still positively affects them. We just don't see the results right away. So we think that it's not affecting them.
Right.
And then at some point it kicks in and no one's able to identify where it came from. They themselves aren't able to identify perhaps that it even happened, but there it is, it's happening.
Yes.
So the net result is anytime that we're learning something that basically helps us get into a higher vibrational state, we're adding to the higher vibrational nature of the human race.
Correct. Like if you've ever been to a yoga retreat, or you've been to a place where there's 500 people meditating, or that kind of thing, when
that's a quick way to get, it's like getting a surge of it at that point.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like turbocharge. You definitely feel that energy and in the space. And what's beautiful is, like, I've been in like drumming circles where suddenly like horses have shown up, like, animals, like, where we've done them outside on a farm, and, animals are coming to the energy. And just wanting to be in that space. That I've done a lot of work in Peru, doing a lot of transformational work and taking people on sacred journeys. And there, when you're in that consciousness, it becomes this vibration that just spreads out. And before you know it, you've got all these people sort of tagging along, which a lot of, leaders, those that use it for good, those that maybe don't use it for as good, are able to sort of corral people into their energy that way. That's sort of a mental sort of perspective, but also from a physical, we have, around our bodies, we have this thing called, and I might not call it the right thing, but it's like a Merkaba or a Merkaba, which is an energy field that spreads out like 30 feet outside of us. So we can enter a room. Like if someone enters a room, you can almost feel their energy first before you
very often
from them. Right. So when you get all these energies in a space that is sort of all melding together, you have the possibility of raising vibration on a very, very high level.
Yeah. Interesting how that works too, spatially. Now, this is also reminding me of something, especially based on what you just said. It's reminding me of something that you do. You have these, we made reference to them earlier, these reinvention retreats, and you were telling me about them before the show, but tell the audience about that, because that sounds like, that's kind of like a foundation ground or building block ground for exactly the experience that we were just talking about.
Exactly. This is a great opportunity. We're doing one in Costa Rica at the end of July, last weekend in July, first week in August. And we are going to this amazing retreat center that I believe is sacred ground in Costa Rica. And we are taking over the whole property, which is amazing, because you get to really deep dive. And on these retreats, there's a mixture of it's everything. It's really looking at, how do I return to the essence of who I am? It's actually called Joyful Haven. So it's looking for your joy again. It's bringing it forward. It's celebrating who you are. And during the week, there's things like, there's definitely some deep dives into, let's talk about beliefs or what's holding you back in life. There's a lot of music. There's a woman who's coming and is co-facilitating with me, who is a singer-songwriter, and she is bringing a lot of beautiful spiritual music. There's another woman that's coming who's a fellow coach, and she's bringing all this mind, body, spirit work. We're doing yoga, we're doing breath work, singing bowls, firework.
Wow.
Those types of things. And cooking classes where we're going snorkeling, so we're connecting with the
Yeah,
ocean.
there you go.
We're doing a beach cleanup where it's brilliant. You work on 1 square foot of the beach and you find micro garbage, basically.
I see.
And that alone helps to save multiple turtles in the ocean. But it's all about intention. And that's what these retreats are about. This reinvention retreat is about returning to your essence with intention. So when you leave, you're leaving with a much better understanding of who you can be moving forward. So it's an opportunity to unplug and an opportunity to also reinvent, to reemerge and look at life in a different way.
And this is a week-long event.
It's a 7-day event. And next year I'm doing an LGBTQIA plus exclusive. So that's next March. So I'm really excited. We have people signed up for that already, where we're taking a deep dive into what it's like to be in a marginalized community and what do we want to be. It's called Pride, Purpose, and Possibility. So we're sort of floating through those 3 things and leaving again with purpose, but first starting with your intention and how you return to yourself. So those retreats are going to be really interesting and fun. And so it's all about, you need to rest, you can rest. You need to eat, you can eat. You need to, go for a swim, you can do that. Or you can also take a deep dive and, return to the essence of who you are. We're bringing in a woman who's doing a beautiful sacred ceremony to open up your heart, to reconnect to your heart space. We're doing arts and crafts. It's going to be really fun.
And I know we have some listeners who that's going to be perking their ears up. They're going to say, "Oh, I learn more about that one." So we'll provide links in the show notes so that people can find their way. You mentioned the idea that the place you're going to in Costa Rica is a sacred space. You think of it as a sacred space. What does that mean to you when you say it's a sacred space?
For me, it's vibrational. Okay. When I step onto a sacred ground, or what I call like a holy ground, then when I can feel my own connection to the earth, when I'm like, sort of like, take your shoes off, you're sort of hearing those messages where you know that your senses are alive. When you wake up there in this particular location, you're smelling the flowers, but you're hearing the howler monkeys and the iguanas running across the roof of your casita, and you're smelling the food that they're preparing, and you're there with the earth, and then the ocean is right there. So it's for me, there's this whole combination of, it's almost like an ecosystem of truth. That's sort of the way I feel. And, I also, and a lot of people, I think about this, like with Machu Picchu, I've been there several times and felt the reverence of stepping onto that ground.
What does that feel like to you? I mean, I've had different people give different answers, so I'm kind of curious to know what your answer is. When you stepped on that ground, what was your experience like?
I could tell you the very first time I went to Machu Picchu, I didn't feel worthy of walking on the ground.
Really?
And so I was sort of brought through the experience and got there onto they call it a sun gate. And so when I walked to the sun gate, I dropped to my knees, quite honestly. And I knew that I was in a very special place for me. Lots of people walk through lots of places. My house could be the same thing for me, my office, whatever. You can create it wherever you need to. But these were places where I really felt connected, where it energized me on a level. Like when I would go to China, there was, I would have an experience in places in China where I'd be walking and go, whoa, and suddenly you're like, I don't know, is that a past life? Is that, what's the connection? But you just feel like, wow, this is really a sacred place. I've had that on beaches in Hawaii. You know, I've had that type of experience in Spain, in France. I went on a bit of a pilgrimage to a Mary Magdalene pilgrimage, as I call it, and had many places where I walked into small little cathedrals and was like, whoa, you know, this is very sacred ground to me. So I don't know if that's giving you a little bit of perspective.
No,
on
that's
that.
great. The hard part about that kind of a question is there's no clear-cut way to answer it. You have to answer it based on whatever feelings and emotions and metaphors work for you. And so that's what makes it kind of interesting to find out what the answer is going to be. So
right.
perfect.
And that's why I kept saying that's the way I perspective. You know, that's my perspective,
exactly.
And the way I feel it and see it. And you know, it's truly is unique, I believe, to everyone.
In fact, when you described how, I think the word you used was you felt unworthy. The first thought that came to my mind is the earlier work you had done about shame. I'm wondering, like, was there a similar current going on there that you had done that previous work, but there were like granules still left that you were connecting to or something? I'm not sure exactly what, but I'm just
absolutely. And I could tell you the first time I went, I had not done the work yet.
Oh, you hadn't done it yet. Oh, okay. So that would make it a very profound connection.
Correct. So then after going back, I've been there several times, as I said, bringing groups of people there. When you go back with a different consciousness and a different awareness and worthiness, so to speak, you then take that to the next level.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You then start to say, well, what is my lesson here now that, I've sort of taken another step in whatever direction my journey is personally, then what am I attracting to me next? What is my next lesson?
So let's go back to the very first thing we mentioned. We've taken this wonderful. I like this rabbit hole that we went down. This is a great rabbit hole.
Good. Me too.
Really good one. But originally we were talking about, we have this certified master life coach here, and then we haven't talked about life coaching at all. So we really need to go down that road a little bit.
Sure.
So let's start with, first of all, most life coaches or coaches of any kind have typically one particular niche that they work with. Is there a niche that you work with?
I truly do not any longer.
Okay.
At first I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to, work with gay men or, whatever the case may be. And I'm like, no, I work with people who are really committed to making change in their life.
Okay. So it's not a demographic niche for sure, but it does sound like it's kind of a niche in that you are looking for somebody who's really committed.
Yeah. Who's willing, willingness is a really big part of this. Because here's the difference with life coaching. Here's one of the aspects of life coaching. There's definitely a need for life coaching, and then there's a need for therapy. And they're two very different modalities. They might get you similarly down the same road, but
often.
Often. But there's, I love to work with people who are in a space where, not everything is perfect in life. There is no such thing, but you're in a place where you feel as if you can, you're ready to go to the next level. You're not necessarily still being pulled back with a trauma or something and I'm not afraid to. And I certainly work with some clients on trauma and how it affects them moving forward in their life. But life coaching is truly, I always say, is similar to, we move people forward. We show possibility and we show what's sort of in the way of that. That's the way I describe it. So it's similar to like a sports coach where you're trying to move everyone down the field. You're trying to be the person that holds the space and brings the idea where you can get you to where you want to be in your life. We start with a vision and we look at what's the vision. Then we spend subsequent weeks looking at what's in the way of the vision and what do we need to do to move it away to move these things away or break through them, using tools that then you can use for any time perhaps something comes up in your life. So once you sort of look at and you sort of clear that path, then we get to what becomes possible, and we look at visibility and, how do you become visible and truly step into the essence of who you are, and use my acronym, which is FLY, which is first love yourself.
Mm.
How do we get you to fly at the
I
end?
like that. That's nice. I hadn't used that. I hadn't heard that acronym before. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Really, really good. And of course, life coaching is the field itself is fairly broad. It's fairly all encompassing. I mean, because there are lots of different kinds of coaching that's more specific. I mean, there's like financial coaching, and there's career coaching, and relationship and dating coaching, and health coaching, and like there's all these little sub niches that people often specialize in. But when you're focused on life coaching, you're not so much trying to focus on one particular area. You're simply trying to focus in on the essence of the person. Am I reading that right?
Correct. And I know that there are very specific things that some of the niche coaches can bring.
Right.
You know, I don't have a financial background, so I can't tell you what's the best way for you to, like, you know, put your retirement together. But I can tell you what's in the way of your net worth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can work with you because you know, again, one of my mentors, Nancy Levin, has coined, you know, your net worth is in direct correlation to your self-worth.
Yeah, that's true.
So I can help you. You know, the financial planner could plan everything out for you, but if you don't believe that you're worthy and you don't believe that you have the self-worth, it's not going to work no matter what you do, because you're going to continue to sabotage and sabotage and sabotage.
And that's a really interesting thing too about people who do the niche coaching businesses, because almost to a person, I can't really think of any exceptions actually. So I think I can say it's 100% of the time, they are adopting and embracing the whole idea of the whole self as part of their practice. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's not like they're trying to be life coaches per se, but they recognize I got to include that in what I'm doing, or else I'm not going to really serve my client.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. For sure. For sure. I would say that what I do offer is a much deeper dive. You know, we could work on, you know, Worthy it's a 12-week program actually, where we're looking at all aspects of your life, or boundaries, which is one of my favorites. Where we're looking at setting boundaries, and, you know, and talk about the strength of, you know, the power of who you are when you get through boundaries, and really learn to create safe, healthy boundaries for yourself, and realizing that no one crosses your boundaries. You're the only one that crosses your boundaries.
The woman who has in the past always done the Thursday shows with me, like this one, couldn't do it today, but her biggest thing is boundaries. So it's interesting that you're bringing up boundaries here. What is it about boundaries that resonates with you so strongly?
Boundaries for me are a true measurement of your self-love.
Okay.
You know, that when, you know, self-care, you know, self-love and selfish, when you can really have those three, and you can really stand in the truth of that, that's when you're in a place to set boundaries that you won't allow to be crossed. You know, the more you can set boundaries for yourself, the freer you are. A lot of people think boundaries are, you know, sort of shut you in, where in fact, boundaries are very expansive and give you the opportunity to expand in your life if you really put those boundaries in place and let yourself know that your boundaries are healthy and they're for you and therefore you're good and will move you forward. You know, and one of the things about boundaries is oftentimes you don't even need to verbalize boundaries. You know, you can just set them. And, you know, one of the things I love that one of my mentors says is no is a complete sentence.
This is true. It really is.
Yeah.
There's another thing about boundaries that I always find to be fascinating. We often talk about limiting beliefs, right? And usually we do it in the context of, well, this limiting belief is what's holding you back. But in fact, all of life is made up of limiting beliefs, and many of them are good, such as a boundary. A boundary is a limiting belief, but it's a kind that is constructive rather than working against your best interests.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I do that with my new relationship blueprint work, where I sort of teach people how to have a healthier relationship with themselves, set boundaries that are healthy with themselves. Therefore, they can enter into relationships, not just intimate, but not just physically intimate, but you can enter into relationships with the boundaries in place that perhaps you didn't have before, because of codependency or people pleasing or worthiness or whatever the case may be, or the shadow beliefs or whatever it is, that then you can really step in a much more grounded place. It becomes your foundation. Boundaries are a foundation for really being like a roadmap for the life that you want.
It's something that I've been thinking about a lot over the last couple of years, reframing for myself what a limiting belief is, to kind of take away the negative association with it, because all of life has limits to it. I mean, thank goodness, otherwise we wouldn't have life. There wouldn't be such a thing as physical matter without limits. It's not even possible to have physical matter without limits. If you take away limits, you don't have physical matter. You just have pure energy. That's just the way it works.
True. Yeah. But when it comes to these beliefs, I mean, and again, I'm sure I know, because I've listened to some of your stuff, like it becomes really, is the belief running you, or are you running the belief?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's in charge?
Who's in charge? Who's being served here? Yeah.
Right, exactly. You can have the belief, but if you understand the belief, and what I like to do with clients is go back to the origin of the belief so we can reframe it and see that it might have served me when I was young to feel scared or to not understand what was going on.
Yeah.
But it no longer serves me to hold on to that same belief. So as an adult with a discerning mind, how can I shift that belief so that it can move me forward? It really becomes, who's in charge? It's like, is this belief running my life and holding me back? Or, am I able to say, oh, there's just that belief that I'm stupid or whatever it is, and just say, okay, thank you for that information, but I'm good. I know I'm not. So I work with clients to evidence the opposite of the belief. Like, give me an example of when you've been smart, and they go, oh yeah, I guess I have been. So it's a little bit of a shift, but it really comes down to with beliefs. Yeah, beliefs are there. They're formed when we're children, usually. Like Carl Jung did that whole shadow belief thing, which is brilliant. And lots of people work with these beliefs. But it really becomes a question of how long are you going to let them control you, or are you going to control them? Because that's the key. When you could say, oh yeah, there's that crazy belief that I got from my grandmother, but it no longer serves me as an adult. That's when the shift can happen, and that's when freedom happens.
Yes.
And possibility.
Yes, no doubt about that. Because ultimately what we're really talking about here is the ability of the human being to have different preferences over time, and thereby to have different beliefs over time. Our beliefs can actually change, and that's perfectly acceptable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's only when we try to put the belief in cement, that's when we run into problems.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's the thing. Yeah, when we're not flexible, when we're not willing to see other perspectives, like as you were saying earlier, where through the show you've considered so many other things. Again, it's just that these beliefs are, man, they can really hold you back. They can keep you hiding. They can keep you small. They can keep you unable to move forward. And when you realize that they are just a belief, it is not a truth. There's a difference between, what is actually the truth here? Is this fact that you're stupid, or is it fiction that you're stupid? We get so stuck in the story versus what is the truth, when we could say, what is the truth here? The truth is that you're not stupid, and it sounds very simple, but when you could sort of address it, when someone says, oh, I'm this and I'm that, like when you could just say, is that fact or is that fiction?
Yeah.
We love the fiction because our ego loves the fiction. The ego doesn't love the fact. It loves the fiction, loves the story. So it's a matter of busting them open and seeing if they still serve you, or can we reinterpret those beliefs so that you can move forward. Those beliefs are always going to be there. We don't make them wrong. We just like to reinterpret them, and we like to consider if they still serve us.
Yeah, you're reflecting on the Byron Katie principles there. Is it really true? Are you sure it is real?
Right. Yeah. Well, she will just continue to repeat it. Well, is that true, or is that true? Until you sort of like, stop saying that, but it's true. Absolutely. It annoys you because it's true, right? Yeah. And she was brilliant. She brought that to light. Absolutely. Thank you for that reminder. She brought that to light for sure.
Yeah, she sure did. We're running a little low on time, so I got to make sure we get through some stuff here. So first of all, there may be some people who have decided they want to reach out and learn a little bit more about what you're doing. Maybe they want to learn about the reinvention retreats. Maybe they want to learn about the coaching or whatever. So somebody who wants to learn more about Michael Mammina, how do they do that? What's the best way to find you?
The very best way is michaelmammina.com. Go on my website. From there, there's a free ebook there. 5-minute steps to the life you want. Sign up on that. You can get on my email list. You can choose to unsubscribe if you want in the future, but you won't, guaranteed. And every week you'll get an email. You will not get spammed, all that kind of stuff. It's a once a week newsletter giving you information and tools. Also social media, Michael Mammina on Instagram, Michael Mammina Coach on Facebook. I'm even now entering the TikTok world. So
oh my goodness, you took the dive.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. I have no idea what I'm doing, Walt. It's sort of wacky over there. But
people who've been trying it are telling me they love it. They really do.
It's been interesting. It's been really interesting. So I'm there as well. But the best place is the website, michaelmammina.com. Really
okay. Good. Yeah. That's good stuff.
And I also offer a free 1 hour session for people.
Okay.
If they want to just come and say hi and explore and see what's possible for them. No obligation. There's a link on there, lots of links on there to actually sign up for a free session.
Okay. So that's something anybody could just take advantage of, no cost, and just try it out. See if it works.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good stuff. I like that. All right. And then there's one other thing I need to tell you. I think I made reference to this earlier in the show, but this is something I like to do every single show with every single guest, because you, like all the other guests who come onto the show, we're givers, right? That's why one of the reasons why you're here. You're here to give.
Right.
And you give in a lot of different ways. You give through your email that you send out. You give through other podcasts that you do, through articles. I'm not sure all the things that you do, but I know you do a lot of giving, because I can tell you're a giver. That's what givers do.
Yeah.
There's a funny thing about being a giver, though. Very often we kind of skip over a very important piece of what a giver does, because the giver is giving out all this free content to people that you've never met, you've never seen, and in many cases, you never will see them. You never will meet them. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they learned from it. You don't know what they picked up. You don't know how they improved. And so we kind of dismiss that. Like, well, yeah, that's just part of the process. That's part of being, marketing your service or whatever. But no, that's actually important stuff. So what I like to say is, on behalf of those many people that you've never met, that you've never seen, that you're putting all this content out to, and that you're helping in ways that you don't even know about, on their behalf, thank you for what you've been doing. Because you're making a difference in this life for a whole lot of people.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
That's why I do it, because of the reaction you just gave. I mean, this is a big deal.
Yeah, I'm taking it in.
This is a big deal. This is something that I swear our culture has just kind of dismissed as like it's not important. Yeah, it is important.
It is.
We wouldn't have the internet that we have if it wasn't for that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pure and simple. People giving what is important to them, knowing that other people are going to find that it's important. That's the world. That's how we got this technological world we have.
Yes, and I like to think that's the reason we're all here.
And that's how I like to think that we're also contributing to the knowledge of the human race. So here, we've just tied it up and put a bow on top.
Perfect. I mean, I definitely get that. It's that I believe that we are truly here. I don't believe we're here to do it alone. I believe that we're here to support.
I tried for years. I've been down that road.
Right. Yeah. To support each other, to love each other, to uplift each other, and to share what we know.
Yeah.
When we can share it and give it, then we all benefit from that. And that's a beautiful thing. I think is beautiful, and what life is about.
Well, thank you for the benefit that you gave us of sharing what you know. We appreciate that very much. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.